Hi,
Welcome to
Rahul.
Excel.
Hi.
Welcome to Xplore. I'm Rahul Rathnam, a student of Xplore GMP program. I come with 5 years of experience working as a risk advisor at Deloitte USA. I happened to go over your LinkedIn profile and I read about your career before. One thing that stood out was how you have transitioned into various industries. I'd like to know more about your journey and what was your motivation behind it. Can you just please walk us through?
Sure. Thanks, Rahul, for having me, and thank you for the very warm welcome that you have extended me. Uh, if I were to kind of look at my own career, then I'll just kind of take you through a little bit of what my experiences have been. Right after my MBA from IIM Indore, one of the first few jobs I took was uh, being a compensation consultant at Hewitt Associates. At that point of time, it was Hewitt, now Aon, and I really kind of uh, made sure that I learned the basics of compensation benchmarking. We used to do a lot of surveys, etc. And at that point of time, of course, I was junior learning the ropes. That experience of understanding compensation comprehensively, including equity compensation, benefits, of course cash compensation,
Mm-hmm.
has always kept me in good stead over the years. So I did that for a while. It was a great learning opportunity, but eventually I decided that I need to get into a core HR role
Yeah.
and not just a consultant. So at that point of time, I joined Wipro Technologies. Everyone knows Wipro, and I was the HR business partner for a particular service line of Wipro for a few years. Again, that helped me ground myself in HR business partnering, and work with businesses, stakeholders on people problems, how to work in a larger organization. All of those lessons were imparted by Wipro. Wipro also happened to send me abroad to handle their Asia Pacific human resources, and I relocated to Japan for a few years, handling all of Southeast Asia countries of Wipro, including Japan, China, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. This was an extremely uh, one of the pivotal career moments that I had. That it really accelerated my learning of handling such a vast geography. It exposed me to international HR. It gave me a intracultural experience of living in a different country. So all very good things. And again, that's one of the life lessons that I have, which I will talk about. That if you want to develop talent, you need to give them early responsibilities and
Mm-hmm.
diverse responsibilities
Yeah.
in the early part of your career. And if you're sure about somebody, you can just load them up with responsibility and see if they swim. So I spent about 6 years in Wipro, and then I came back to India, did a small M&A as a part of my final role with Wipro,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of transitioned into Adobe Systems. And Adobe, of course, was a product company,
Yeah.
and it was interesting because at that point of time, product companies were starting to come to India,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to see what that landscape was and how different it was to, let's say, Wipro. And Adobe also was a very enriching experience where I uh, did business partnering, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other associated roles in HR, which was compensation, HR systems, I parallelly handled till such time we hired some of the people in those roles. And I really understood how a product company works and how the nuances, etc., are different. This was also the time that Adobe was transitioning from a selling CDs to selling subscriptions over the net.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was again a cultural change in the organization that I was able to witness,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to be a part of handling the HR nuances of that transition. So after a few years in Adobe, um, I was aspiring for a larger leadership role, and then I transitioned for a small time into a company which was in the ad technology space.
Okay.
But eventually, I became the head HR for the McKinsey Knowledge Center
Mm.
in Gurgaon. And the McKinsey role was also interesting because it was another shift of industries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from services to product to now consulting. And I was helming the knowledge center which used to do high-end business research. It used to do a lot of data analytics work. It used to do a lot of the deep domain work, and all of that stuff used to happen at the knowledge center. Again, this was a very interesting role because it had multiple stakeholders across the whole globe who would sponsor positions in the knowledge center, and one had to deal with a lot of complexity in an environment like that. Did that for again a few years, and then finally moved on to Tejas Networks, where I am currently the CHRO of Tejas Networks. Again, a very exciting opportunity where I would be the CHRO of a revenue-facing organization. Given that Tejas is a listed organization, by the time I joined, it give extra responsibilities in terms of running an absolutely solid HR function, which of course did all the right things, because we are a listed company. That comes with extra responsibility. Incidentally, Tejas also had a manufacturing setup, still has, and that is the added attraction that I would delve myself into a role which looked at, of course, the manufacturing setup, which I had not handled before. So here I am. This is just a small summary of my around 25 years of experience since I started. And each of these transitions were challenging.
Yes.
Each of these transitions were, in a sense, different industries, different nuances. The HR policies were different, practices were different, and each of them contributed to me being a professional and has aided my professional journey. So I'm very, very thankful to all the organizations that I have been associated with, that they helped me shape the kind of professional I have become today.
Yes, sir. It really inspires me how you have constantly tried to come out of your comfort zone, and you have tried to unlearn and relearn throughout your career. So that takes me to the next question. So recently I was reading about a case study on Kavinscare. It's a company from Tamil Nadu. It's a so the CEO of that company, when they were in a down phase, mentioned getting the right people makes everything of an organization. So can you talk us about the talent acquisition part of our organization?
Yeah. So what I'm going to kind of do is to try to distill some of the enduring learnings in talent acquisition that I have imbibed. And this is not from a book. This is not from any source. These are just learnings that I have kind of kept a track of, and they have been reinforced. And I'm just going to talk about a few of them in the domain of talent acquisition. So one thing is that please always hire people who increase the average capability of the team. A lot of hiring managers sometimes try to bring I wouldn't say mediocre, but people who would just not take the team ahead in terms of capability. So the aspiration of any recruitment in any organization, it's universal, should be that the next person you hire should increase the average capability of your team. So you have to hire above your average capability and make sure that the people that you are bringing are adding something to you. Okay, that's one advice I would give to any hiring manager when they are trying to hire someone. The second insight that I have seen in my roles as recruiting people, as a talent acquisition leader, or even advising senior leadership, that in our minds, all of us have this perfect candidate, and we write a nice job description and say, okay, this is exactly what I want, and this person should tick all the boxes, and only then that person is allowed into the organization, into this team. So I just want to kind of say that, look, there is nothing which is the perfect candidate. A perfect candidate doesn't exist. One should look at a broad alignment of the must-have things. So long as you have a 70% alignment of the must-have things, and must-have, this can't be like 10 parameters. Must-have could be 2 or 3 parameters for a given role. So long as you have a 70% alignment of those parameters, The last 30% you have to believe in learnability. You have to believe that the person will come, will be able to pick up, will be able to learn. You have to believe in the fungibility of human potential.
Correct.
That the person will be able to kind of take and pick it up. Okay. And again, no assessment process is perfect. Interviewing, which is the most widely used, is has low validity. Studies have shown that. So we shouldn't kind of be very, very confident that, look, I am this master assessor and I will be right 100% of the time. Which brings me to my third lesson, that all of us will make some hiring mistakes. And it's okay, we are all human. But the importance is to recognize that one has made a hiring mistake and to address it, rather than continue to search for the perfect candidate who doesn't exist. So it's sometimes good to take a punt, sometimes to kind of go with your gut. Most of the times you will be right, but there are some times that you will not be right, and that's okay.
Correct.
And so long as we address it, we are doing the right thing. The fourth and the last thing that I would say is that it's very difficult to coach people or imbue in people ownership, uh, attitude, and these are things very, very difficult to teach. So ownership is intrinsic, attitude is intrinsic. These are things that people have in them. Motivation is intrinsic, right? Of course, it can be impacted by some organizational factors, but the intrinsic motivation to do a good job, the intrinsic ownership of delivering something end to end, having the right attitude, about your work is something that is very, very important. And mostly, in my experience, these things cannot be taught. You can only influence it to a degree through organizational levers, but check these things when you're bringing someone in.
Yes.
Okay. And finally, of course, all of us know that in the market, we get the talent that we pay for. And it's good to have a very realistic view of what the compensation philosophy of the organization is, what we can pay, and therefore what talent we could get. So I think those are the 5 or 6 points that I would kind of call out in the talent acquisition space. I'm doing it for several years, that have held me in good stead. And in my view, these are just good practices that people can take away.
Yes, I think with a lot of print media, saying talents have been commoditized right now, but to get to know from the first-hand experience of you, like how much you value behind and thought process you put behind a talent, kind of makes me feel happy about this. A next point of discussion I'd like to have is, I'm a big fan of the MS Dhoni himself, and I like how a player might be performing in another team, and when they come under his leadership, how he manages and how they perform, really.
Correct.
So how do you see talent management as a concept, and how do you what's your take on that side of HR?
So good point. Talent management is critical for organizations, and in this era, people have to consciously focus on talent management. I'll just again share my two cents on it. First of all, I think in most organizations, you have to let it be known that people own their own careers.
Yeah.
So this is oft-repeated statement: you are the CEO of your own career. There are always organizational enablers, and that should always exist. The enablers could be IJP processes. The enablers could be kind of giving diverse responsibilities, etc. But one thing is very clear, that you are the CEO of your career. That should be abundantly be known. So it's not about spoon feeding, saying, okay, here is a path, then the organization has laid it out for you, and this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. It's good to maybe have a template around it, but if people are intrinsically not willing to take charge of their careers, then things will not move. So one has to raise their hand, and the organization should be brutally clear about it, that you need to kind of raise your hand. You need to kind of make sure that you are taking on responsibilities. You need to kind of do things to further your career. That's one. I will not, of course, discount the organization enablers. And one of the best enablers I have seen is to give early responsibility to people and diverse responsibility to people. So I talked about the fungibility of human potential in my previous part of the discussion. So if you believe that talent is fungible, that they can learn and they can learn different areas, etc., etc. Give the first 10 years are the ones which lay the foundation of your career. So in those first 10 years, it is good to give early responsibilities even if the person is 70% ready, and diverse responsibilities, because then they have an appreciation of the whole business context rather than a very narrow view of business and just a very tunnel vision view of how the business operates. So that's the second point I would make. I will also, while I say what I said, value what specialists bring into it. There are certain roles in the organization where just deep knowledge about something takes years to build.
Correct.
Yeah. So while I do talk about, let's say, diverse responsibilities, if it is truly something on a technical track or it's a deeply technical role, then you also have to kind of give it its due to say, look, you are a specialist, you need to kind of go deep into it, you need to be with this for several years to kind of build the requisite capability. We're talking about experts, architects, we're talking about people who have deep domain knowledge, or let's say who have done, I don't know, maybe risk modeling for 20 years. There's a certain amount of value that these people bring in. So you have to recognize that there are some people after a point of time will become generalists or specialists. I wouldn't say this or kind of a debate. An organization needs specialists as well as generalists. So one needs to kind of keep it in mind. And that's the only thing. Move people around, keep an open mind. Sometimes you will get some suboptimal things when people move from function to function which they do not know about. But that's okay. That is a part of developing talent in the long term.
Yes, sir. I think if I can conclude or summarize in 1 or 2 points that comes to mind is like just owning and being leader of your own work which you're doing. Is something I take as a takeaway at least. A next topic I want to ponder about is, so you are a global person. You have touch based on people with different ethnicity, different mindset, different backgrounds actually. And we talked about talent, that is skills and competencies and everything. But people are more than that. So can you walk us through the people management of an organization?
Yes. So when I say people management here, we are talking about how managers actually manage employees and what impact managers have on the experience of the employees, what impact do have on the career of employees and things like that. People management is an extremely important role, which is sometimes underpegged, but it's extremely important if your business is people centric and people form the bedrock. So I of course have managed teams over a period of time. I have my own teams that I have managed over a period of time, and I have been a coach counselor to the line managers in the organization to say how should they manage their people. So again, I'll give you some thoughts that I have on this particular topic. Again, one is that managers certainly don't need to micromanage, but managers should know what it entails to get the job done. Okay, so they shouldn't micromanage, but the manager can't also say, I don't know how you're getting it done, just get it done. So managers should appreciate at least what delivering something entails. Okay, but while they know that, they shouldn't micromanage. They shouldn't kind of jump in and do someone else's work. So it's a balance. You have to know what you are asking of your employee, but have the restraint and the confidence to say that the person is capable and will do it himself. Employees sometimes don't respect managers who say, look, I don't even understand what you are doing. Then the employee will say, look, even if you don't even understand what my challenges are, then how do I kind of look up to you? So that's, I think, one important point. So managers have this to be deep enough but also abstracted enough to make sure that they are balancing this aspect. It's a very, very important aspect of people management. The second part that I say is that people should feel that they are just not an instrument of getting work done. So this is the softer aspect of it. Again, this is something which cannot be taught, but managers have to build amicable relations with their team members. Okay, it's not transactional. So managers again have to have that fine line that they don't become friends of their reportees, yes, but they shouldn't be this absolutely distant person who nobody is comfortable in sharing what their life is, what's going on in their life, right? So you have to be friendly, but you shouldn't be friends with your employees. Yeah. So again, it's a distinction. Correct. That I would make that. And managers need to be friendly, because if they are not, then they have a different set of problems. But if they are friends, then that has a different set of problems. Yes. So it's about balance. The third is that a lot of managers believe that if I say sorry, if I've made a mistake, if I show some emotion or vulnerability, it makes me weak. What will people think? Okay, I'm this manager who has a sense of authority and power, and if I show some amount of vulnerability, then I'm thought of lesser as a person. I'm not this manager, boss man kind of a thing. I think that is not the right thinking. It is okay for managers to be vulnerable. Yeah. It's okay for managers to show that they are also human, and they can make some mistakes. Okay, I don't think it is too much if the manager apologizes for things said in the heat of the moment. It's okay. I don't think it demeans you. It only increases your respect. At least it shows the self-awareness that you had raised your voice. Okay. So I think it is important that managers don't think like that at all. And again, I'm not going to say much except one more point. Managers cannot say that, look, they do not have the time to train people or to mentor people. Okay, so if the person is assigned to you and the person is a reportee, you are responsible for, let's say, assessing the person at the end of the year, you have to put in effort to train and mentor those people, right? So I've often heard in my experiences that, look, I don't have time to train, I don't have time to mentor, I don't have time to kind of build the capability of my team. That's not done. If you are the manager, it is a part of the job. Okay. Yeah. So you have to kind of do those things if you're a manager. So that's where I would kind of end it. Those are my mantras of people management, both personally as well as what I would tell line managers continuously.
Yeah, a funny anecdotal like that comes up when you mentioned about the friendly part and friend part, right? So a couple of maybe a year back, there was a Twitter issue that went up wherein a person mentioned that his or her manager was saying, you are like a family, you're like a family and got a lot of work, then that become an issue. So that kind of differentiate, like there's a small change in the name, but it means a lot.
Yeah. It's a balance that you need to maintain.
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir. I think probably the last segment we would like to go in is, we have a lot of HR professionals and HR people from other industry who want to do a people job and get into HR aspiring roles. With your experience, with your knowledge, what are your advice to them so that they can work upon themselves and get into those?
Yeah, so I'll just say this. You have to, again, I'm not going to go into the the technical requirements of the job, which is fine. I mean, you learn HR formally through MBA HR and things like that. So the formal part of it is fine. I'm not going to talk about that. But I'll give some of my thoughts on what eventually makes a successful people manager. So first thing is, of course, need to know business. Again, it's an oft-repeated statement, but you need to kind of know business. But more importantly, you have to have the conceptual clarity of your subject area to be able to kind of give advice based on your knowledge of business and based on your knowledge of HR. a lot of HR knowledge seems to be, how should I say, shallow and superficial, but that is not true. There is a certain amount of conceptual depth and conceptual clarity. There's a certain amount of just comfort with numbers and numeracy that every HR professional should have. So it's no more like a touchy-feely area where one can just get by. You get a seat at the table if you understand numbers, if you have conceptual clarity about your subject matter. Of course, you have to know business. Is when you will get the respect that one deserves. You have to have empathy. I think empathy, as we discussed in several sessions today, is something that AI cannot have. And an HR professional has to be imbued with a sense of empathy about the human condition. Okay. Again, this doesn't mean need to be touchy-feely stuff, but genuine empathy where you are trying to put yourself in the shoes of the employee. And you are, in a sense, balancing that with the demands of what management or leadership have. So HR is in this middle ground where they have to have empathy for the situation or situations of employees. They also have to understand the business implications of what is expected, and continue to balance that throughout their careers. And that balance is very, very important. The last thing I would say is that you need to have curiosity and humility. So you need to be curious about the world. Okay, if let's say today we are talking about AI or we are talking about some other topic, nothing stops a person from being curious about and going and reading about it in some amount of depth. Okay, so you need to be curious, and you need to basically be humble, saying that we don't know everything. There is always a different point of view, and it's okay. I mean, there is nothing wrong in saying I don't know when you don't know. So so those are the broader messages that I would want to leave with somebody who's trying to get into HR or be in HR. Empathy is key. Knowledge of your function is key. Numeracy is key. Curiosity is key. Humility is key. Okay, those are the 5 things that I would say would keep you in good stead throughout. And again, continue to learn. Learnability is something that you should always have. World will change in let's say 30-year career. What you begin and where you end, the world will fundamentally change, and it is just important that you continue to learn in those intervening years, in whatever context you are kind of into.
Sure, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for this inspiring talk. I mean, I'm taking away a lot from this conversation, a short conversation, and I believe people who are consuming this will have a lot to learn about this short conversation. And so once again, I thank you a lot to coming to XRE, spending your time with us, and sharing your experience.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.